Welcome to Radiant Living, Inspiring Humanity to Thrive. I'm your host, Marisa B. And today I have with me a veteran in the field of preventative medicine and health and wellness, spending 35 years working in research and development in the areas of infectious disease, ophthalmology, oncology, and neurology. And in her spare time, she became a certified transformational life coach, certified tapping into wealth coach, registered yoga teacher, certified yoga therapist, Reiki master, and emotional freedom technique practitioner. Today, I'd like to welcome Cindy Edington. Hi, Cynthia. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's unbelievable. You have really run the gamut of the sciences, the health, the wellness. Can you tell the audience a little bit about how you started? Because you really have had your hand in, especially the research and development first.
Absolutely. So if I go back in time, this actually all started from a heartbreaking event. I went through a really heartbreaking divorce many, many years ago. And when that happened, it was a heart-opening event at the same time. And so what started for me was literally, I had very little resources, I'll put it that way. So my ex left me with a ton of debt, and I had a small baby at the time. So, I mean, we split when our daughter was about 9 months old.
Oh my
And
God.
so I had to, I know, right? It was a very crazy, crazy time for me. And so for me, I had to get very resourceful. I didn't have a lot of resources, but I had to get very resourceful. And so one of the things that I did to keep myself in check, to keep myself grounded, was I used to go to the gym all the time to work out. And so when that happened, I decided, okay, how can I create this win-win-win? I'm always looking at like, how can I take a lemon and turn it into lemonade, so to speak? And so I thought, well, geez, you know what? I'm just going to go and get myself certified as a fitness instructor. And so this is where it all started. So I literally started teaching fitness so I could actually get a free gym membership, get paid to teach a class. And oh, by the way, they had a mini daycare there. So it really was this win-win-win scenario for me. But with the divorce came a lot of, I'm going to say, not feeling worthy. Didn't feel good enough. There were so many things that were coming into play in terms of me not feeling deserving, and a lot of messaging that came from, I think, early on in my childhood. I grew up in the quintessential 50s style marriage. My dad was the breadwinner. He was in law enforcement. It was basically whatever he said was the law in the household.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And my mom was the nurturer. But, there was a lot of negative messaging. It just goes back to that style of parenting, very authoritarian parenting, if you will.
And do what I say. Yes.
Exactly. Do what I say, but not what I do, and there was always this contradictory, he could do whatever he wanted and it was okay, but God forbid, any of us did anything, especially being in law enforcement, we weren't allowed to do anything that would upset the apple cart and make him look bad. So there was all this pressure all the time. And, and this is, I'm not coming from a place that's, I'm still carrying all this hurt or anger or feel wounded by, any of these events. I mean, I'm really in a healed place, right? So
well, as I think as a child, when you're living in that, and it's do what I say, and your parent is an authoritative figure and in law enforcement, you don't necessarily understand. But I think oftentimes as an adult, you realize, perhaps what they've seen, jades them. And so they're overcautious, right? As an adult, you see that's, like you said, there's no place of hurt and harm now.
Right.
Because you've not only worked through it, but understand it and recognize. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've done a lot of work in terms of like programming, like where do we get our limiting beliefs, right? Because I had a lot of limiting beliefs after that occurred, and there was a lot of blame and shame that actually came towards me. It was like the first question, my father said to me was like, what did you do? I went home for the weekend going, hey, my husband didn't want to be married anymore. And all he could say was, it's not you. And so I took that really to heart, and it really drove this complete feeling of I need to be perfect to be loved. And so I went into perfectionism, into high gear. And it took a lot of time. I mean, this is the journey, right? Of like learning all of these side hustles, if you were, they were really my passions. It started with this thing, but then it grew into all these other areas because I was growing and evolving through all that, again, all that had occurred in the past, right?
But isn't it funny? Your ex-husband said to you, and this is not just you, it happens to a lot of people. He said it's not you, it was him. But you didn't believe that because of the negative, maybe phrasing from when you go back home to hear, well, what did you do? But the reality is he told you that it wasn't him, but we don't often believe that ourselves, right? It takes a lot to overcome that.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, plus I had found out he had been seeing somebody on the side. So it was like, again, it was like, boom, boom. It was like one thing after the next kind of thing. So I think when you go through that kind of situation, again, it really does a lot to your self-esteem. It does a lot to your confidence. And so for me, again, getting into things that nurtured me, right? So very much nurturing, again, going to the gym was a way to nurture myself. But from there, it grew and grew and grew. So the next phase for me was getting into yoga. And so I think where I live, and I mean, I've been teaching yoga now for almost 25 years. Yeah. And so think back 25 years, yoga is really out there woo-woo thing. Now yoga, you find a studio on every corner.
Yeah.
But back then it was really, really different. So I had a male colleague at the time, and he was like, Cindy goes, you should really come to one of my yoga classes. I was always interested in like, how can I like grow myself? How can I learn and do something different to, again, keep myself centered? Because again, as a single parent, I didn't want to be this like falling apart person in the corner. I felt I got to really be, solid and grounded for my daughter and really present myself in a good way to her. So he's like, all right, come to a class. All right. So I go to this class and it's a Kundalini class. So if you're not familiar with Kundalini yoga, it's very, I want to say introspective. It's a form of yoga to me that was it's not, so yoga has turned into, it's just another gym class. And trust me, I've taught those kind of classes too. So I'm not bashing it at all. But when I got out of this class, and we didn't do anything physical. This was the thing. It was like we did a couple of poses that was all seated. We did some chanting. We sang a song at the end. We all ate an apple. And I was like, it was so different for me. But I will tell you, when I got up and walked out of that class, I felt like I was walking on air. And I had a light bulb moment because it was like, oh my God, it was just so much inner love that I started to feel. And I had this big recognition that all of my validation was external. I had realized, again, aha moment, I was seeking all of my validation from external sources. And to me, it was like, oh, I have to come inwardly. And that to me was the beginning then of some really deep inner work. So more of the healing of what I had gone through in terms of the divorce, but all of the programming of like, where did my limiting beliefs come from? I mean, because I had this belief that I'm not lovable unless I'm perfect. And trust me, this isn't like 2 snaps, wipe around the mouth. I figured it out and this has been a journey.
Yes, it's a long journey, right?
Years in the making here.
Yeah.
One small step at a time. And yeah, so I mean, to me, that was the first entree into looking at the world in a really different way. And then I just hungered for more and more and more. Then the next pivotal moment was coaching. So I was at a job, and I love my job actually in the research and development area. I was at a job working in infectious disease. Think that some of the strengths, I'll give you some of the strengths, actually, the good things that came out of childhood were that I was really flexible, really adaptable. I got along with people really well because I was like the people pleaser in the family, make everybody happy because I make my father happy. We moved around a lot. And so there was a lot of bullying in my background because going to new schools 3 times.
Yes.
I was in high school. But again, some of the positives out of that, though, were I could go into any situation. I felt like I could actually be a chameleon, right? I could go fit in anywhere. And so, I was in this job in research and development, loving life. I was there for almost 19 years. And then, the hammer came down. They decided that they wanted to move the company to New York City. And I wasn't in a position where I could make that move. Really, again, thinking of my daughter first. And by the way, I still was giving my ex opportunities, in terms of custody. I had full custody, but I wanted to make sure that she could see her father anytime. And if we moved away, that was not going to be possible. So anyways, like, tangenting here, roll back into where I want to go. So we were getting ready to basically have to move on to different things. And I wasn't sure really what I wanted to do. And all of my friends kept telling me, Cindy, you should actually think about being a coach. I mean, really, you should think about being a life coach, because all of the grounding work that I was doing and yoga practice and centering myself, everybody flocked to me for advice or just a place where they could come and have somebody truly actively listen to them with no judgment. Because I was in a place where, like, I never liked being judged. And I was like, I am not going to do that. So I would really listen with an open heart to whatever it is that they had going on and give perspective if I needed to. But a lot of times I would just ask them questions. Well, what do you really want to do? So really, like, very natural coaching kind of questions. Okay, suffice it to say, I decided, okay, I think I'm gonna try this out. So I got into a coaching program. I went into Coach You, again, probably one of the first programs out there with Thomas Leonard. It was a 2.5-year program, so very intensive program for coaching. Graduated from there, started my business. Still was teaching classes, so I was still doing fitness classes, and then I started to actually get certified for yoga and teaching yoga classes. And I thought about, going into it full time, but I had a big, huge block with scarcity mentality. Because again, go back to the family history. I came from very humble beginnings. My parents didn't have a lot of money, and there was a lot of negative messaging about people who did have money. So, I had this big block. I'm like, how can I jump into this? I'm like a single parent. I felt like I really needed the safety net of having the full-time job with full-time benefits and the healthcare coverage and yada, yada, yada. So needless to say, I just did it on the side. So again, it was one of these things where it was like I was still teaching classes, but started coaching people on the side. And just, again, built on that. Well, it's taken me a very, very long time to get to the point, as you saw, is the intro that you gave. I went from a lot of different positions then in the science, field of science. And in the end of 2019, I turned 60 and I said, enough is enough. My daughter is now married. She was on her own. I've got 2 beautiful grandbabies now as well. And
you were having success, though. Isn't that funny? We're having success as a coach for quite a while, but not making the step.
No, not making the step. And oh, by the way, I met another man, and we've been together a very long time as well. He was actually an aerobics instructor of mine when I was, working way back when, and we met, and we've been together a really long time. But it took me almost 15 years. And I don't know how he stayed with me that long, Marisa. Because I was like, again, this big blocker. I'm like, I had been with my ex for like almost 9 years, and I'm like, I was petrified to like put my heart back out there again because I just did not want to be hurt. Plus, I got a child now. I don't want to have anything happen to, get into a relationship, have it fall apart. So again, another big, huge blocker. I think when you get into that modality of, I was in survival mode for so long, I think you jump into masculine energy. And I just put up, I was afraid, I wasn't armored up, armor. And so to be completely vulnerable was like too scary as well. Right. So It took a very long time for me to trust him, but I'm going to say this, to really trust myself.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line, I think that's what it came down to, is to really trust myself. And so again, fast forward, journey. We've been together for, over 30 years now as well. And married for how many years now? I don't even know. 17 it'll be this year. So, really good things have come into my life. And I'm so grateful for that. And I think gratitude's yet another piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, go back to 2019, I said, that's it. I'm going to start my business. Well, I thought I was actually going to go into yoga therapy because as my yoga journey progressed,
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to help people that couldn't go into a regular class because, again, yoga has evolved too. And a lot of people, it was just another workout class. And for me, yoga was more than that. It was a lifestyle
Yes.
of just really centering yourself in all areas of your life, eating well, sleeping well, taking care of yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so I decided that I wanted to do a little bit more in areas where where I felt I could help more. And so I got into a yoga therapy program and got certified as a yoga therapist.
Yes.
I've been doing that for about 12 years now. I've been certified as a yoga therapist. And that was again, yet another growing area for me to really give back. And I worked a lot with cancer survivors. And that was just really, again, another area where it's just so rewarding for me, is to help other women who were, in the aftermath of
Right.
cancer, cancer survivors. So I did a lot of work there. I became certified as a restorative yoga instructor as well.
Yes.
And everything that we can do to restore ourselves.
Yes.
And so I thought that was going to happen. And then COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
COVID hit.
Yes.
And everything. And so everything that I was doing in yoga was all based on personal, it was like,
Yes. One on, yes, in person.
yeah, all in person. And so I thought, I got to pivot. And so I started doing some chakra training, and I ran into a woman, Margaret Lynch Ranieri. She's great. And she had a coaching program. It was an entree in doing some of the chakra work, but she had a program that was the tapping into wealth. And she trained us on using the emotional freedom technique. And this is where, excuse me, again, more aha moments for me, just really opening up to all of the programming, past programming. So all the negative messaging, especially for us as women, that we get very early on, right? In terms of like how we're taught we're supposed to behave, like, girls are supposed to be everything nice, like sugar and spice. I look
Right,
at
exactly.
Right. I look at the recent Barbie movie and I love America Ferrera's, monologue because it is so true. And as somebody who's like, again, in her, sixth decade here, I mean, these were all the messages that I heard growing up and into my early, and even into my later adult life. I think that there's so much that's been done now in a positive way to create more positive messages for women. There's still a lot of negativity out there too, don't get me wrong. But I think that this is where I learned even more just in terms of how much programming I had in me. And again, another pivotal, huge growth moment to use that. I use that technique a lot in my coaching now to actually move through a lot of emotions that we carry in us that we don't even realize that we're carrying in us. To get to the other side. So a really great way to actually move through blocks and limiting beliefs. And at the same time I was doing that, again, I was still working and all these other side things that I like to do, yoga and teaching yoga and restorative yoga. And because I was working with women that were in kind of like the aftermath of cancer survivor, I was working with a woman who was going in for her 5-year checkup, and she came in for a restorative session. And, I just, when you're in restorative yoga, you're in a posture for like, 15, 20 minutes. You're all blanketed and bolstered in.
Yes.
All about opening up your energy centers. You don't have to do any movement. It's really just being. So I'm sitting across and I'm literally just closing my eyes and putting my hands up and saying and said, just sending her love and light.
Yes.
sending her love and light because I knew she was so anxious about,
Oh, of course.
right? I mean, that
Yes.
5-year clock is such a
Right.
pivotal moment. And so I was just sending her love and light.
Mm.
And we got done with the session, and she says to me, Cindy, were you standing over me and like giving me energy? And I was
Mhm.
so blown away. I was like,
Mhm.
well, no, I was sitting across from you, but yeah, I was sending you love and
Mhm.
light, and it was palpable. And then all of a sudden, again, I think universe like knows, like I must be ready for something else. So all of a
Mhm.
sudden, Reiki just kept coming up.
Yes.
It just, somebody would be talking about Reiki or would come up on
Mhm.
my screen, and I hadn't even really talked about Reiki at all. And I'm like, all right, I got to investigate this further. So I went through the whole Reiki journey then. So
Mhm.
I did, the level 1 and 2 training,
Yes.
waited the appropriate period of
Yes.
time, did my practice, went into advanced and master. And then I met this guy again. I got to shout out to him. Dr. Brian Daly, he is my master teacher and my mentor for, actually teaching Reiki. And this guy has
Mhm.
traveled the world. He's actually a physician. He is a physician that is
Mhm.
working in one of our urgent care centers here, and he has a Reiki room.
Oh,
And
lovely. Yes.
amazing. He trains a lot of residents in Reiki so that
Mhm.
he's done a
So,
lot of
right, they can use it. Yes.
Yeah, he's done a lot of clinical studies to
Mhm.
show the benefits of Reiki, in terms of like having you go into a surgical procedure and having Reiki done beforehand and not what the outcomes look like afterwards in terms of your
Mhm.
recovery and whatnot. And so there's some really, and again, as my science hat goes on,
Mhm.
there's
Yes.
there's this data, the same thing with emotional freedom technique. There's
Mhm.
clinical data to actually show how this can
Mhm.
actually like reduce your stress response, and how much we carry in our nervous system. And, this we're all dis-ease. Heck,
Right.
we're in
Exactly.
fight or flight all the time.
Mhm.
This is where dis-ease in the body happens and can manifest into all these other physical and mental and emotional
Mhm.
ailments. And so he was just phenomenal. And so I volunteered at his clinic and we would Reiki together, again, cancer
Mhm.
patients. So we worked a lot in cancer patients.
Yes.
And again, so that, again, another thing that I kind of like added into my
Mhm.
repertoire. And so, I can teach Reiki, but I also offer Reiki sessions.
Mhm.
Once again, because of COVID, one of the main, hate to say that word guru, but he is, in my humble opinion, William Rand is kind of like the guy that
Mhm.
is our nowadays guy. Him and Colleen Benelli and her daughter Robin, I look to as big mentors in the Reiki
Mhm.
space. And so he actually, again, Reiki evolves as everything else does. And so you can actually do, because there is no time and space when it comes to Reiki.
Right.
And
Exactly.
concept for a lot of individuals, it's a hard concept to consider.
Right.
But I started doing Reiki, via Zoom as well. And
Mhm.
I will have to tell you, people that I did in person versus Zoom, same clients were like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, Cindy, I can't even believe how powerful it was via Zoom. Sometimes it was even more powerful. So
Mhm.
again, more things to add into just overall around
Mhm.
wellness. Um, and I really love to work with women because I am a woman, and
Mhm.
I can relate to a woman's experience. So all of these things that I kind of like bring to the table, to offer up to women.
Mhm.
So that those were the pivots. Those were the pivots. And so now my business, I focus more in on women's empowerment. I work
Mhm.
a lot with women that are um, actually in the post-divorce aftermath, because
Yes.
that was a big aha for me as well in terms of going after a clientele, because I can really relate to
Of
um,
course.
all of
And I
them.
would think that that's what they're looking for, right? I mean, if I were in the throes of divorce, I would want to be speaking to someone who's gone through that. And of course, has all of the background that you have with the coaching, because naturally you bring with you personal experience and professional experience. Because how would you go to someone who doesn't know anything about that? I
Exactly.
don't even think you could talk to some, what would you say? You would feel alien with whatever you're saying to them because they could not relate.
Correct. So that's my main focus, is working with women that are in,
Mhm.
again, that aftermath of divorce. I'll work with any woman who wants to do some kind of
Mhm.
empowerment or just nurturing themselves or grounding themselves.
Mhm.
You know, so again, I have this palette of techniques, if you will.
Right.
But overall, it's really empowering women to really, especially after divorce, right? I mean, it's
Hmm.
all about how can we regain or rebuild our strength, right? Or
Hmm.
reignite our passion for life, because there can be so many negative things that happen. And just really re-engage the biggie here is our personal power.
Yes.
It can really chip away at your self-esteem and your self-confidence. I mean, I did a lot of blaming myself, right? It was like I was in the should, shame, guilt cycle for a long time. It was like, I should have, been prettier. I should have been smarter. I should have been stronger. I did all of this shoulding
Hmm.
all over myself. And I think when we should on ourselves, first of all, it gets really stinky, right? Sitting in a pile
Right.
of shit.
Yes.
So we want to like try to get rid of that as much as possible. And so that's really what I like to work with women on is like, how can we build the self-esteem back up and
Hmm.
self-confidence and really come back into our personal power. So I focus a lot on,
Hmm.
the first four chakras, simply because that's where all the empowerment energy resides
Hmm.
as well. And so, even if you don't know what a chakra is, it doesn't matter. I mean,
Right. Right.
they're
Exactly.
energy centers, but really, to me, that's where all of the empowerment energy
Hmm.
resides. And so, right now I actually have one of the things that I've developed over the past, few years now in the business is it's basically a 12-week program for women
Hmm.
to come in, and it's based on the chakra system.
Hmm.
Again, you don't even need to know about that, but it is all about how do we like ground ourselves, right? How do we come
Hmm.
back into that place of calm? How do we build our confidence? um, Build our passion. How do we get into that place of, being able to take action, really
Hmm.
building our courage center, and then coming into our hearts? Because I think that, again, for so many women, we don't know how to love ourselves. There's
Hmm.
so many negative messages out there that, we don't know how to truly love ourselves.
Right. And it's so funny because even though I guess divorce is relatively prevalent, or it had been for quite some time, um, when it's happening to you, that's why it's so important to have that connection with a coach, because when it's happening to you, it is personal, even though it's happening on the outside in the world, right? And it's happening to other people and you understand it on a rational level. Well, this occurs, it's happening more and more. But when you're in the throes of it yourself, it it's devastating. It's devastating. You feel less than. And no one many people don't need an excuse to feel less than. That's already a big problem. As a therapist, I could tell you that's a big problem for many people, feeling less than. And so any blow to any any life, any lifestyle, that's a bigger problem. That's a bigger problem. So to work with someone is so important, even if you don't know it right now. It really is, right? Because you get that support.
And it takes the inner work because a lot of times, again, when we're in it, we don't see, again, if you're not
Hmm.
familiar with, I think, thank goodness, there's
Hmm.
so much more in terms of information that's out there
Yes.
for women. Because again, I'm going back 30 some odd years for me.
Hmm.
I mean, I had a few books. We didn't have we didn't really have
Right.
the internet to go to. I mean, I know it sounds
Yeah.
crazy, right? To a
No,
lot of,
right.
a lot of
Yeah,
people, but I
no.
mean, my
Listen, I'm going to
generation.
tell you, I come from a time I can remember. I have a very good memory, and I remember I was a little girl, and I come from a time where they didn't even mention divorce. It was whispered amongst adults that
Right?
this is what was happening, and they never said it out loud. And it was almost, and it's sad because, and I remember this like it was yesterday. It was almost like shame and guilt because it was happening to someone. And there was no, let's Google how we can get some help, or let's, attend something via Zoom that's going to empower us. It was nothing like that.
Right.
So we have come a long way, and we're so fortunate that we have these things out there now.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I wish, right? But, my journey is my journey, right? My journey
Hmm.
is my journey. And I feel so fortunate at this point. I mean, I'm looking at all the positives, and we're all going to have our own journey and our own path.
Hmm.
And that's just how it is here. I mean, that's our human experience here.
Hmm.
But I feel very fortunate that I've been able to experience a lot of different things and come through, again, my philosophy of taking those lemons and turning them into lemonade, just having that kind of will, if you will, to say, I'm going to make it better for myself. I don't know what it's going to look like just yet. And I just feel fortunate that things have just come to me in different ways that I never expected. But they've all been really positive things that have added to, I think, who I am as a person. So, I mean, I really look at it as a past of survival, right?
Yes.
To a present of maybe self-actualization, but there's always room to grow. So I look at it as this hopeful future of transcendence, right? To continue to evolve into our next best version of ourselves. Because to me, the work's never done. There's always something else
Right.
to learn about ourselves, and just to be open to that. Because I think
Well, it's so important. It's important.
right?
Yeah, I mean, it's important, right? We're learning every day, and we should learn every day, and we should attempt to grow and become more enlightened. But I will say that I love your work, because not only that, I mean, apart from your personal journey and that you had gone through divorce and you're helping and men and women, but primarily women that are going through that, but you also have the wealth factor of coaching for women, which is really important, because already there's an issue with the problems of divorce, the feeling less than, that it's your fault, even if it's not your fault. And I know that the old saying, it takes two to tango, and that, there's always two sides to the story and then the truth in the middle. But that all those fears are already there. And then the feeling of less than, and not being able to make enough money, and not being able to believe that you deserve enough money, or that you deserve to live an abundant life. That is like so important. I love that you add that into your work, primarily with women, because I think women right away feel that they're less than, and that they don't deserve to be comfortable on an economic level.
Yeah, and I think it's even more difficult. Well, I'm going to say this in general. In general, I'll say this because I don't want anybody to get offended. It's like, well,
Right.
that's my experience, because I totally get that too. But I think in general, when you're a single mom, if you've got kids, after the divorce as well, there is just a whole tendency that I've seen with most of the women that I've worked with, where again, it's so hard to even put yourself on the list, let alone at the top of the list, because everything's focused in on the children, right? How can I make them well? And so you just totally get into, again, this whole survival modality. I like to call it maybe more of the masculine energy too, where you're constantly like having to take care of everything. And there's no time then for you to really like focus in on yourself. And so that's one of the other things that I really try to promote with the women that I'm working with, is that it is vital.
Yes.
Vital. Self-care is vital. And it's interesting, because I was having a conversation with another woman. We're actually doing a little talk series ourselves on, just kind of like going through what women go through. And we were talking about vulnerability, and just how women really armor up, and how difficult it is to bring in self-love. And one of the questions that came back, well, isn't self-care really self-love? And I came right out and said no. Because, and this is the example I gave, is that I can go to the gym and get a great workout in, and I'm taking care of myself, right? I'm taking care of my body. I got to work out, but I might hate myself, right? I still might, I don't love I'm constantly maybe worrying about, oh my God, am I like, do I look good? What's the fear there? There could be so much fear that's underneath there that's still blocking me from loving myself just as I am.
Right, exactly.
Right. And then the deserving piece of it, because that's also part of it, right? It's like, the more that we can, again, practice self-love, and that takes a lot of work.
Oh, yeah. Actually, both do, right? Self-care, just to get over to having, trying self-care. Then we haven't even scratched the surface yet about self-love, because that's really deep work. There's self-care, so many. And I have this often happen where people say, that's a selfish person, like that. Oh, that woman's selfish or frivolous because of self-care. So can you just imagine trying to cross that threshold of self-love? That doesn't even enter the conversation. That's a lot of deep work.
Yeah. Yeah. And it takks time, and
Yes.
that's the thing too, is that, I tell all my clients all the time, I'm like, you're on a journey. I'm like, I'm going to tell you right now, this isn't, again, 2 snaps, wipe it on mouth. I'm going to walk.
Right.
It's all good. I'm going to love myself today. It's a journey. This,
Yes.
you got to reprogram, reframe. It's a constant, and surrounding yourself with
That's important.
support groups, supportive women.
It has to be like-minded people, and you have to be there because they lift you up, and you need that because you are going to slip back. You will, because it takes a lot to overcome. I have a lot of clients that say it's taken me many years. That's the first, quite a few of them say it's taken me many years on my healing journey, because you will slip back. And you do hear those negative phrases often. For some reason, I don't know why it is that they're there. I mean, I know why the women hear it, but I don't know why it's in society. Where has that come from? I have personal thoughts as to where it's come from or why it's come. I'll put it that way. I'll put it that way, why it's come. But the idea that that women shouldn't care about themselves, shouldn't take care, shouldn't want anything, shouldn't feel that they deserve anything.
Yeah.
That's so much to overcome.
Huge. And
Yes.
you, again, programming. Right? This goes back how many generations? Our society, our culture, right? Where, I mean, look at how long it took for women to get the vote, for crying out loud.
Yes.
I'll give you an example of this too. I remember trying to get a credit card. Now we're going back into the 70s, right?
Yes.
God, I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. But try to get a credit card. I remember that I could not get a credit card unless I had my dad signed for it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the crazy kind of stuff. Couldn't get a car. Could not buy a car on my own. Had to have my dad co-sign it. Right. So this is the kind of crazy stuff.
But you say that. We say we're probably relatively similar in age. We say that was what was happening back then, but I can remember, and it wasn't that long ago, where professional women, single, making fabulous money, could not purchase a home. This is a shocker. Could not purchase home. And these were in metropolitan areas where they were really, and I know one in particular, in technology and at the top of her field and excellent money, but could not purchase a home because she was single. This was something that really, and this was only a few years back. This wasn't that long ago.
Good Lord. I thought we had progressed at least a little bit more since then, but apparently not.
Could you imagine? Yeah, it was very surprising that was still happening. I say, maybe a good 10, 12 years ago. That's shocking.
Yeah,
that it was still happening. So there are a lot of things to overcome already with society. So when you find yourself in the throes of your own personal issues and you feel the pressure from the external, from society, you absolutely need to surround yourself with like-minded people, get yourself with a coach that knows something firsthand as to what you might be going through. I think it's important.
I do too. And again, not here to like promote myself, but I only because I know for myself, right, that it's really important to like surround myself. And again, back then,
you had nothing, right? Where were you going to go?
There was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. So I got to tell you a little story here too, because I went to a therapist for a little bit, and it was so interesting. And it was a female therapist. And she said to me, she goes, it's not uncommon. It's really not uncommon at all, for a man to have an affair when the decision's been made to start a family. And I was just
really, wow,
blown away. So I was like, so just again, I say this, to as a fellow person in this kind of space, that it doesn't matter, if you're somebody out there that needs a coach or a therapist,
Right.
go in and check them out, right?
Yes.
Make sure that they resonate with you, because that was such a turnoff to me. I left.
That's a shocker. I mean, I could see somebody saying that it's not uncommon that it happens.
Yeah.
It happens because men are fearful when a family's coming. And with that comes their own issues of support, security, being a man. There's that as well. So, and I do understand it. So I can understand that someone would say that it's not uncommon that it does occur, but not that it's something that one is supposed to accept
Right.
or understand at that time. Yes.
Thank you
Yes.
for saying that and clarifying,
Yeah.
because back then I just looked at him like, what?
Yes.
And so it just felt like, again, we're going back many, many years. I just felt, again, all of the blame was on me then, right? This is all for me to carry. It was like giving my ex this free pass then. And, and I'm walking around with this bag full of emotions now, not knowing like where to go. And I felt so alone in it, right? I mean, I had girlfriends, but they're not going through it. They couldn't possibly
Right.
even understand. And so, again, I didn't want to be this person that was going to them all the time going, falling apart. So I just, like I said, I like armored up big time, and I got really good at going tuck, 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 tuck. I'll just
Yes.
tuck that feeling over here. I'll just tuck that feeling
My
over there. I'll
gosh.
tuck this, tuck that. Well, let me tell you, after many years of tucking,
Yes.
I had go back in time when I was doing my yoga therapy training. We had this one guy came in. He was a somatic therapist, and he was actually a yoga therapist for grief relief. Fantastic guy. And I don't know, I can't even remember exactly what he did. All I know is whatever he said and whatever poses we were doing, it was like, I felt like he pierced my heart open because I've been carrying so much grief that I had tucked away for so long that I like crumpled on the floor in front of all of these other women. I was bawling my eyes out, and I didn't even know why.
Why? Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what's going on here. And he just came out, cleared the room. I cleared the room.
Yes.
Doing that. He came over and just sat by me. And we got done, and I said, I need to work with you. And I worked with him.
But how wonderful that was able to come to the fore.
Again, I'm just saying open to like, I want to heal. I want to help other people heal. And I worked with him for like 4 years. And I mean, it was just incredible. And just in terms of, again, how much what he allowed me to feel, because vulnerability. I'm not weak. I can't be sad. I can't be crying. I can't be doing any of that. Again, it was like I was trained that these are signs of weakness, I mean, we're vulnerable. We don't do that. We just buck up and push through. And I'll tell you, it was, again, one of these other like pivotal moments in my life where it was like so much healing. And his big message was, Cindy, it's actually okay to sit in your sadness and to feel your feelings.
Yes.
I think so many women are told, we're trained not to feel our feelings. Like, heaven forbid we should actually display anger, right? Because then we're seen as being a bitch.
I have to tell you, I display anger. I'm going to admit it. I'm going to admit it. I don't know. I was raised by very strong women. I display anger. I don't know. I don't think I've ever not spoke my mind.
Good for you.
Yes. And I want everyone and that's why it's funny. That's why I do the job I do, because I want to make sure that everyone understands how important they are and how what they feel is important, and they have a right to speak. No one has to be nasty, but you have a right to speak your thoughts.
Exactly. I think that, again, that's one of the big things. I'm with this women group I'm working with right now. We were just actually talking about the power of anger. And, as you say, displaying anger in a healthy way. What happens, though, a lot of times, and I don't know if you'll agree with this or not with me, Marisa, but if we do a lot of talking, when we start to actually display anger, it actually comes out explosively, right? Because we're so used to like tucking everything away.
Shoving it in, yeah.
We shove it in. And then it gets to a point where then it's an explosion, right? It's like this anger vomit that comes out.
And you really don't want that. Yeah.
No, because then what do? We start shooting on ourselves. We start shaming ourselves, and we start guilting ourselves. We go right into the should, shame, guilt cycle.
Yes, it's amazing.
And so then it's like, okay, how do we learn then to actually display anger in a more, and I'll say this in hanging quotes, mature way. Like, how do we
Mhm.
do this in a way that you say is we can still be firm and express our
Mhm.
anger, but not in a way that is like blasting and
Mhm.
being disrespectful of somebody else, right?
Right. Right.
So that can take some time to learn too, especially if
Mhm.
you are, again, a woman who has been taught to talk, 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 talk,
Yes.
not feel your feelings. It's huge,
Mhm. And
huge.
oh, it is. And that if you do, because don't get me wrong, that there are those that do that, you always have that that voice in the back, because many people have frowned upon it. So, then they think, like you said, you're a bitch, or you're selfish, you're self-centered, you're self-absorbed.
Right.
That how many times does one hear that when a woman might be um not necessarily assertive, but speak her mind.
Hmm. Hmm.
That they often hear that. It's a very fine line to walk.
It really is. I mean, having worked in corporate for so many years
You
as
read my
well.
mind. I was just going to say that, especially corporate America.
Oh, please. And I can tell you how many men will be like, "Rah, rah, rah." Oh, and it's fine, fine. If
Hmm.
you are the male species,
Hmm. Yes, yeah.
he's just being, he's just really, expressing his opinion. Where, if you came in
Hmm.
strong the same way, then you're being aggressive. You're
Yeah.
being aggressive, you're being a bitch, you're all of these negative connotations
Hmm.
really for expressing an opinion in a firm way. So, I
I
mean, it's
know.
pretty, and that still, I think, happens quite a bit.
I'm sure. And it's funny, because it's a horrible situation, because a lot of women feel they can't do that because they need that job.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I always think of it like, if you didn't need the job, really, how you would probably express yourself more often, because you don't care. But so many people need a job, especially a single mother,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. So we acquiesce. There's a lot
Yeah.
of,
Oh,
again, we acquiesce into
absolutely.
like whatever needs to, we do whatever,
Hmm.
we buck up, right? We do whatever is necessary.
Yes.
And so I think, again, it's the group of women I'm working with right now, their kids are getting older and that. So it's like, now how do you
Hmm.
start to come back into your own, right? Because again,
Right.
you're so used to, again, acquiescing in every aspect maybe of
Hmm.
your life. How do you become, the person for you?
Hmm.
How do you put yourself on the list? But, I'm encouraging you, Nick,
Right.
to the top of your list. Like, you got to take care of it. Sounds so cliche.
Yes.
And I'm sure everybody's heard this, 100 times more, maybe even more. The oxygen mask comes down in the plane. Who do you put it
Oh,
on?
I always say that. I always say,
Right.
and I was a believer of that. But I want to tell you how many women, and I'm of the school, I don't give two F's about anything. I was never, even as a kid, I could care less what anybody thought about me. It didn't bother me. That was your opinion. But
Yeah.
I can't tell you personally how many other women in my life that actually have something to say about that.
Hmm.
Perhaps the caring of oneself, that I've heard them make comments, not necessarily only about me, but others as well. And I've been the first to say, wait a minute, because the first thing they'll say is, well, that's selfish, or what, oh, she only thinks about herself. Other women that I'm standing next to, often it takes me aback when I hear it. And then I realize it's all of that programming also, because if one has had that programming and you don't work on it, but many women, that that that's really kind of sad that many women still do that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's like, like there's such a negative connotation with
Mhm.
selfish, right? If you look at it, selfish,
Right.
it's all it.
Yes.
I mean, certainly we can take it to this derogatory thing where we're hurting other people, right?
Right. Right.
But how many women really do that?
Right. I mean, but working on yourself, taking care of yourself,
Yes.
that's not selfish. But it's a big barrier to break through for a lot of women.
Yeah, and
That's why I love the group you're doing. Tell me about that group, because that sounds, honestly, how many women need that type of group to work in? Because that really, that is troublesome. I mean, literally, I've only heard it last week about a neighbor from another woman. That's sad.
yeah. So Yeah, the group I'm working around, so I have a couple of groups.
Mhm.
Got my group program. It's basically
Yes, right.
it's a 12-week program. And we touch upon again, it's four main pillars, right? The pillars
Mhm.
are again, calm, confidence,
Mhm.
courage, compassion. And it's all about rebuilding strength, rebuilding confidence,
Mhm.
reigniting, re-engaging your personal power and renewing your heart. And so, I keep it small and intimate so
Mhm.
people can actually sign up for it. But I like to have it no more than 5 women in a group,
Mhm.
right? I
Well,
know.
right. So they can exchange thoughts, ideas, right? If it's large, I'm in a number of large groups now,
Yeah,
very large, 60, 75 people. Many people don't get a chance to speak
yes.
in a large
That's
group.
why, I mean, again, could I do larger groups? Could I,
Mhm.
again, could it be more of a quote unquote moneymaker? If I brought more people into the fold, I don't like to
But
do
that's not what you're there for,
It's
right?
not, that's not who I am. That's not what
Mhm.
I'm there for. I want to have that intimate container that's safe,
Mhm.
non-judgmental. I set the rules right off the get-go saying
Mhm.
we're not here to shoot on each other. This is a safe container where you can really come to the table and share
Mhm.
your shares and feel your feelings, and we're going to work through them. And so I've got it's basically there's a lesson, I've got
Mhm. Yes.
I use the tapping technique, so I use a EFT as
Mhm.
my tool.
Yes.
And then there's always homework, and then we have the next time we can meet, we have a group discussion on, what we went through the week before, and it's
Mhm.
so rich.
Mhm.
It's so rich, the shares, because the themes may be the same,
Mhm.
right? But the stories are different. So everybody's coming at
Yes.
it at a different angle. And people, the women are like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
I'm home. This is where I need to be
Mhm.
because I don't feel all alone in this anymore. And I can actually now my awareness, I can see, a bigger view that,
Yes.
wow, wow, that happened to you. But
Yeah.
it's again, it might be apples, it might be oranges, it might be
Mhm.
all fruit, the theme. And so there's that connectiveness. And
Mhm.
then, I've got a private Facebook group so that again, you can connect even more. So we're
Oh,
constantly,
I'd like to put that in the description. And you have a website, right?
yeah,
You
I
have
have
a
I
website.
have
So
a
I'd like
website.
to
And
put
actually, the website's actually under reconstruction right now.
construction.
But
So
that's
many people are doing
you
that.
can still get into that. But, I post a web article every month.
Mhm.
I have a newsletter that I send out once a month
Mhm.
as well. But yeah, there's a private Facebook group for any of the women that come into the program.
Mhm. Oh,
Again,
I'd like to list that too.
sharing all the time,
Yes.
back and
Mhm.
forth, posting really positive things,
Mhm.
uplifting each other. When we get together and have our weekly, again, it's a
Mhm.
weekly group
Mhm.
for the 12 weeks. And, last night was great. We had our group last night. And so we were talking again just about, building more confidence.
Mhm.
And so we were just sharing, books that we've read or podcasts that we listen to.
Mhm.
And so again, just another place where you can get more information, that again, I can go listen to this. Does it resonate with me? Ooh, I like that, but just
Right.
bring more resources. I have a bevy of my own, but I've got other women now that
Mhm.
they're coming to the table with, hey, have you thought of this? Or hey, have you
Yes.
listened to that? So it's just a really, really great way to share and
Mhm.
nurture and uplift. And we have a text chain.
Mhm.
So if somebody has a play, they're having a bad day, the
Yes.
first one to say, you want a barn raise? I call them barn raisings. I'm having,
Yes.
okay, we're all going to text, hey girl, we got your back, whatever,
Mhm.
a positive thing, something, a little quote to like keep you going through your day to know that you, we got your back.
Right. You're not alone.
You're not
Exactly.
alone. We got your back. So as you can tell, I can talk on and on about it because
Yeah.
so it is so fulfilling to me to be able to
Yes.
do that, to be able to share my own personal, because I share my personal experiences too. I'm like,
Right.
I say, gals, um, I'm in this with you. I've been doing this for
Yes.
a long time, but I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and I share my personal story
Mhm.
and experience with them. So it's not just me sitting there
Oh,
listening, right?
absolutely. Even right. Even I mean, coaches have to have coaches or mentors. Therapists have to have therapists. I mean, you really want to speak to someone
Yeah,
that
well, yeah,
can
that
listen and
too.
can assist. Of course. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You want to feel that you can speak your mind and can have somebody there that listens and that can assist you.
Yeah. Well, that, and I share some of my personal story with my clients too, because so they
Yes.
know that I'm not just, it's not just Cindy popping smoke here, blowing smoke out here.
Right.
It's like I can relate to that. And so I will share some of my story with them, openly and freely, because we're in this safe container and they know that, so that they know too that I get where they've been. I
Right.
walked in their shoes, and how difficult the journey of self-healing can be. It gets
Yes.
time.
Yes, and it's true. It can be difficult and it does take time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was wonderful speaking with you today. I know we could go on and on, right? I mean, there's
No,
so
we
many
could.
subjects. I really hope you can come on again. That would be wonderful. You can come on again. We could speak about another topic. It's always wonderful
Anytime you want,
to,
girl.
to
Anytime.
talk and help. Yeah. Listen, to help. If you help one person, if we let one person know that they're not alone and that there's a place where they can get information or they can have an ear to listen to them, that makes all the difference. That's what's really important.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Cindy. Hopefully we will speak
inviting
soon.
me. Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Have a wonderful evening.
All right. You too. Take care.
Bye. You too. Bye.